The storm was a furious beast that night, clawing at the small town of Willow Creek. Thunder ripped through the sky, rattling the windows of the aged buildings, and a relentless downpour transformed the streets into miniature rivers. Streetlights flickered, their weak glow struggling to penetrate the dense fog that rolled in with the storm, shrouding everything in a veil of gray. Most businesses had already shuttered their doors, their owners seeking refuge from the unforgiving weather. But Maggie's Diner, a small, cozy haven nestled on the outskirts of town, remained stubbornly open. Inside, Laura Mitchell, a waitress with a heart as warm as the coffee she served and a spirit as resilient as the old brick walls surrounding her, wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that evening. Business had been painfully slow, the only sounds the rhythmic drumming of rain against the windows and the occasional rumble of thunder. She glanced at the clock, its hands ticking with agonizing slowness. Just another hour, and she could finally go home, curl up with a good book, and forget about the storm raging outside. As she turned to put away the rag, a sound cut through the cacophony of the storm. A truck, its headlights slicing through the rain like glowing daggers, pulling up in front of the diner. Water splashed up from the deep puddles on the road as the massive vehicle lumbered to a stop. For a moment, nothing happened. The engine idled roughly, the only sign of life in the otherwise deserted landscape. Then, the driver's side door creaked open, and a tall figure emerged, stepping into the deluge. Laura's breath hitched in her throat as the man entered the diner. He was drenched to the bone, his clothes old and tattered, clinging to his frame like a second skin. Mud caked his heavy work boots, and water dripped from his shaggy, unkempt hair and his beard, which looked as if it hadn't seen a comb in weeks. He carried himself with a weary stoop, like a man who had been running from something or someone for a very long time. He didn't remove his dripping jacket as he made his way to the farthest booth in the corner, the one shrouded in shadows and furthest from the warm glow of the overhead lights. He didn't acknowledge anyone, didn't even glance in Laura's direction. He simply sat down, resting his calloused hands on the table, staring at the scratched and worn surface as if it held the answers to all of life's mysteries. Laura hesitated, her instincts warring with her innate sense of kindness. She knew the diner was about to close, and she should just lock up and leave, but she could not bring herself to ignore this man. She picked up her notepad and walked over to his booth. "Welcome to Maggie's Diner," she said, offering a warm, genuine smile that she hoped would cut through his somber demeanor. "What can I get you?" The man didn't answer, didn't even look up. She tried again, her voice gentle and reassuring. "Coffee? A hot meal? Anything to warm you up?" Still nothing. His posture remained stiff, his fingers lightly drumming against the table, his gaze distant and unfocused. Laura observed him carefully, her heart aching with a mixture of pity and concern. She had seen people like this before, drifters, down on their luck travelers, souls battered by life and clinging to the fringes of society. Without another word, she turned and walked to the kitchen. Old Maggie, her boss, was nowhere to be seen, so Laura decided to make the food herself. A few minutes later, she returned to the booth, carefully balancing a steaming plate of chicken pot pie, piled high with fluffy mashed potatoes and a fresh cup of coffee, the aroma of which filled the air. She placed it in front of him, her eyes meeting his for the first time. The man finally looked up, his eyes, a piercing shade of green, filled with a mixture of shock and something deeper, something she couldn't quite decipher. Hesitation, maybe. Even guilt. "I didn't order this," he murmured, his voice raspy and low, as if he hadn't spoken in days. Laura simply smiled, her expression unwavering. "It's on the house." He blinked at her, his brow furrowed with confusion. "Why?" She shrugged, her smile widening slightly. "You look like you need it." For the first time since he had entered the diner, his lips parted, as if he wanted to say something, to express his gratitude, to explain his circumstances. But no words came out. Instead, after a long, heavy pause, he nodded slowly, his gaze softening slightly. "Thank you," he whispered, the word barely audible. Laura walked away, giving him space to eat in peace, but she kept a watchful eye on him from behind the counter. He ate slowly, almost cautiously, savoring each bite as if it were the best thing he had tasted in a long time. There were tears in his eyes, or it may have been reflections from the rain outside, but Laura felt a great deal of satisfaction for offering this meal to this stranger. When he finished, he wiped his mouth with a napkin, stood up, and hesitated near the door, as if struggling with an internal conflict. He turned, locking eyes with her once more, a flicker of gratitude in his gaze, and then, without another word, he walked out into the storm, disappearing into the darkness as quickly as he had appeared. Laura didn't know why, but a strange feeling settled in her gut as she watched him go, a premonition that told her this wasn't the last time she would see him. She knew little about this man but knew that he was in pain, and if she could offer a little peace she had done her job. Days passed, The storm had long since faded, replaced by the crisp, golden air of autumn. Willow Creek basked in the warm glow of the late afternoon sun, and the memory of the stormy night began to fade. Laura had nearly forgotten about the mysterious stranger, consigning him to the long list of drifters and travelers who had passed through Maggie's diner over the years, until he walked back in. But this time, he looked completely different. Gone were the tattered clothes, the muddy boots, the unkempt hair, and the weary stoop. Instead, he was dressed in a crisp, tailored navy blue suit that fit him perfectly, polished leather shoes that gleamed under the diner's fluorescent lights, and a sleek, expensive-looking watch that sparkled on his wrist. His hair was neatly trimmed, his beard immaculately groomed, his posture straight and confident. He was almost unrecognizable, a complete transformation from the haggard figure who had sought refuge in her diner just days before. Laura, clearing a table near the window, froze mid-motion as she saw him approach the counter, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Hello again," he said, his deep voice filled with a hint of amusement. Laura stared at him, stunned into silence. "I what?" she stammered, her mind struggling to reconcile the two images. He chuckled softly at her reaction, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "You don't recognize me, do you?" She blinked rapidly, trying to clear her head and focus on the man standing before her. I do, but how?" He extended a hand across the counter, a warm, genuine smile spreading across his face. "Ethan Hayes," he said, his voice smooth and confident. The name sent a shockwave through Laura's mind. She had heard that name before, somewhere. It was on the tip of her tongue. And then it hit her, the pieces of the puzzle finally clicking into place. Ethan Hayes, the billionaire trucking magnate, the self-made man who had built a transportation empire from nothing. Just months ago, the media had gone wild when he mysteriously disappeared, vanishing from the public eye without a trace. Some speculated that he had lost everything in a financial scandal. Others believed he had gone into hiding after a betrayal within his own company. But here he was, standing in her diner, looking as polished and successful as ever. You're Ethan Hayes," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "The one and only," Ethan mused, sliding onto a stool at the counter, his eyes fixed on her with a knowing smile. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Laura." Laura struggled to find the words to express the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. That night, you were at my lowest," Ethan finished, his voice softening slightly. "I had lost everything, my trust, my company, my faith in people. I was running from myself, from my failures, from the wreckage of my life." He paused, his gaze drifting around the small diner, as if searching for the memory of that stormy night. "That night," he continued, his voice filled with a newfound appreciation, "I walked into this diner with nothing but regret and despair. I was a broken man, lost and alone." His gaze returned to Laura, his eyes locking with hers, a silent acknowledgement of the kindness she had shown him. "And then you," he said, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. "You showed me kindness, without knowing who I was, without expecting anything in return. You gave me hope when I had none." Laura swallowed hard, her heart swelling with a mixture of humility and pride. "I was just doing what anyone should do," she said, her voice barely audible. "You looked like you needed help, and I offered it." Ethan shook his head, his smile widening slightly. "No, Laura," he said, his voice firm but kind. "Not everyone would have done that. In this world, kindness is a rare and precious commodity, and you possess it in abundance." He reached into his expensive coat pocket and pulled out a thick envelope, placing it gently on the counter in front of her. Laura eyed it suspiciously, her brow furrowed with concern. "What is this, Ethan?" she asked, her voice filled with apprehension. "Open it," he said, his eyes twinkling with anticipation. With trembling fingers, she carefully opened the envelope and pulled out the contents. Inside was a check with an amount so large, so astronomical, that it made her head spin and her vision blur. She stared at the numbers, her mind struggling to comprehend the sheer magnitude of the sum. "Ethan, I can't take this," she stammered, her voice filled with disbelief. "It's too much. I don't deserve this." "Yes, you can," he said, his tone firm but kind, leaving no room for argument. "I did my research, Laura. I know that you've worked here for years, saving every penny to one day open your own restaurant, a place where you can share your love of cooking and create a warm, welcoming atmosphere for your community." Her breath hitched in her throat, her eyes filling with tears. "How did you?" He chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "I have resources," he said with a smirk, "and a very resourceful team of investigators. Let's just say that I'm not used to people being kind for no reason. They were more than happy to tell me what a wonderful human being you are and what your dreams are." He leaned forward, his gaze locking with hers. "And this," he continued, gesturing to the check, This is your chance, Laura, to make your dream a reality. To finally have the restaurant you've always wanted, to share your passion with the world, to create something truly special. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling over her cheeks as she held the check, her hands trembling with a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. She had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, to save enough money to open her own restaurant, but the goal always seemed just out of reach, a distant dream that she could never quite grasp. And now, here was Ethan Hayes, a billionaire she had met at her lowest point, offering her the opportunity to make that dream come true. Ethan leaned forward slightly, his expression softening with a mixture of sincerity and hope. "But there's one thing I want you to promise me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, her eyes shining with tears, her heart filled with a newfound hope. "What?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Never stop being kind," he said, his gaze locking with hers, his voice filled with a quiet intensity. "No matter how much success you find, no matter how many obstacles you overcome, always remember that one act of kindness can change someone's life, can give them hope when they have none, can inspire them to believe in themselves again." She swallowed hard, her heart swelling with emotion. "I promise," she whispered, her voice filled with conviction. "I'll never forget." And just like that, everything changed. Laura's life transformed overnight, from a struggling waitress barely making ends meet to a successful entrepreneur with the means to make her dreams a reality. With Ethan's help, she secured a prime location for her restaurant in the heart of Willow Creek, hired a talented and passionate staff, and designed a menu that reflected her love of classic comfort food with a modern twist. The grand opening of Lauren's Kitchen was a resounding success, drawing crowds from Willow Creek and beyond. The restaurant quickly became a local favorite, known for its delicious food, its warm and welcoming atmosphere, and, most importantly, for Laura's unwavering commitment to kindness and generosity. She never forgot Ethan's words, never forgot the lessons she had learned from their encounter that stormy night. She made it a point to give back to the community that had supported her for so long, hosting a Pay What You Can night every Tuesday, ensuring that no one went hungry regardless of their circumstances. She also started a mentorship program for aspiring chefs, offering free cooking classes to underprivileged youth, giving them the opportunity to pursue their passion and create a better future for themselves. Meanwhile, Ethan's return to the public eye was met with mixed reactions. Some praised his resilience and his ability to rebuild his life after such a devastating setback, while others remained skeptical of his sudden disappearance and reappearance, questioning his motives and wondering if he had something to hide. But Ethan was determined to rebuild his reputation, not just as a successful businessman, but as a philanthropist, a force for good in the world. He established the Hayes Foundation, focusing on initiatives to combat homelessness, provide job training for those in need, and support community-based organizations that were working to make a difference in their local areas. One evening, as Laura was closing up the restaurant, tidying up, and enjoying the fruits of her labor, she received an unexpected visitor. "Ethan," she exclaimed, surprised to see him standing at the door, his face illuminated by the warm glow of the restaurant lights. "What are you doing here?" "Mind if I come in?" he asked with a smile, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Of course not," she replied, stepping aside to let him enter, her heart swelling with a mixture of joy and gratitude. Ethan looked around the bustling restaurant, taking in the warm atmosphere, the happy chatter of the customers, and the delicious aromas wafting from the kitchen. A sense of pride was evident in his eyes, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that he had played a part in creating something so special. "You've done an incredible job here, Laura," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "It's everything I imagined and more." "Thank you," she said, her cheeks flushing with pride. "I couldn't have done it without you, Ethan. You gave me the chance to make my dream a reality, and I'll never forget that." Ethan shook his head, his smile widening slightly. "You're giving me too much credit," he said modestly. "I just gave you a push in the right direction. The rest was all you, Laura. You had the vision, the passion, and the hard work to make it happen." They sat down at a corner table, sharing stories about their respective journeys, their triumphs and their setbacks, the lessons they had learned along the way. Ethan spoke about the challenges he faced in rebuilding his company, navigating the complex world of finance, and regaining the trust of his investors and his employees. Laura, in turn, shared her experiences running the restaurant, the joy she felt in creating a welcoming space for her community, and the satisfaction she derived from giving back to those in need. As the night wore on, the conversation flowed effortlessly, their connection deepening with each passing moment. They talked about their dreams for the future, their hopes for the world, and the importance of kindness, compassion, and generosity. As the candles flickered, illuminating Laura's face, Ethan grew quiet, his expression thoughtful, his gaze fixed on her with a newfound intensity. "Laura," he began, his voice soft and sincere, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said that night at the diner, about how kindness should be a given, not an exception. It's been resonating with me ever since. She nodded, her brow furrowed with curiosity, wondering where he was going with this. I want to do more, he continued, his eyes filled with a burning passion. Not just through the foundation, but on a personal level. I want to create a space where people can come together, share a meal, and feel a sense of belonging. A place where they can find support, encouragement, and a helping hand when they need it most. A place like this, he said, gesturing around Lauren's kitchen. But on a larger scale, a community hub that can serve as a beacon of hope for those who are struggling. Laura's eyes lit up, her face radiating with excitement. That sounds amazing, Ethan, she said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. How can I help? Ethan smiled, his eyes twinkling with anticipation. I was hoping you'd say that, he said, his voice filled with warmth. I want you to be a part of this, Laura. Your passion, your vision, your unwavering commitment to kindness, it's exactly what this project needs. I can provide the resources, but you have the heart, the soul, and the expertise to make it truly special. Over the next few months, Laura and Ethan worked tirelessly to bring their shared vision to life, pouring their heart and soul into the project. They purchased an old, dilapidated warehouse on the outskirts of town and transformed it into the Haven, a vibrant community center that offered free meals, job training programs, and a safe space for those in need, creating a place where everyone felt welcome, valued, and supported. The grand opening of the Haven was a celebration of hope and unity, attended by people from all walks of life, a testament to the power of kindness and the transformative potential of community. Years later, Laura stood outside the Haven, watching as a group of teenagers laughed and chatted over a meal, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of the interior lights. She had come a long way from a small diner on the outskirts of Willow Creek, but her core values remained the same, her commitment to kindness unwavering. Ethan's words echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of the transformative power of simple acts of compassion. Never stop being kind. She had taken that message to heart, and it had guided her every step of the way, from the success of Lauren's kitchen to the profound impact of the Haven. She knew that even in the face of adversity, even in a world that often seemed cold and unforgiving, kindness could always find a way to shine through, to make a difference, to change the world, one person at a time. As she turned to go back inside, a young man approached her, his face etched with weariness, his clothes worn and tattered, his eyes filled with a mixture of uncertainty and hope. Laura recognized the look immediately, the same look she had seen in Ethan's eyes that stormy night so many years ago. Welcome to the Haven, she said with a warm, genuine smile that reached her eyes. What can I get you? The man hesitated, his gaze shifting nervously to the ground, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, he stammered. I need help. Laura didn't wait for an answer. She knew what he needed, knew the comfort of a warm meal and a kind soul. She went to the kitchen and returned with a steaming plate of food, her heart swelling with compassion. It's on the house, she said, extending the plate to him with a gentle smile. The man looked up, his eyes filled with gratitude, a single tear tracing a path down his weathered cheek. Thank you, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Laura smiled, her heart filled with a quiet sense of satisfaction. Because she knew, with unwavering certainty, that kindness, like a ripple in a pond, would always find its way back, creating waves of positive change that could transform lives and build a better world. She saw in this young man the reflection of that former stranger, Ethan. She knew Ethan's legacy and lessons of the importance of simple acts of kindness would continue on for generations, growing and changing with each new recipient, just as that hot meal had all those years ago. And she knew, too, that she would greet the next weary soul with that same warm smile and steaming plate of food because that's what Ethan had taught her. Kindness would always find its way back.